Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Limitless Show.
What's up? What's up?
Host,
Let's roll.
The People's Champ, Chris Stowe.
Yeah.
We're rocking it.
TPC in the house.
And I'm here with my co-hosts, my boys. I've got Top D, aka Steve. I've got Benny, aka Simba. And we're here for episode 6 of the Limitless Show
Yes,
podcast.
sir.
And as always, we just want to give a shout out to all the listeners and to all the brand new listeners. Welcome to our podcast. This show is all about empowering you to become limitless, to overcome the self-limiting beliefs. And for this episode, we're going to be talking about insecurities.
Ooh.
Them demons.
And
Insecurities.
demons, right? So we actually want to talk about what are some of those insecurities that many people deal with and how do you attack them? And I think one of the biggest insecurity that people have is obviously the fear of what other people think. So maybe we'll just kick off there and we'll sort of go into the different insecurities. And Simba, for yourself, how do you deal with what other people think about you? How did you overcome that insecurity?
Yeah, thanks for the question, man. Oh, that one's a big one.
Juicy.
It is a juicy one. Like a nice juicy ribeye steak or a tomahawk or something.
Ooh, yum.
You know what I'm saying?
Hashtag Volcano Steakhouse Blacktown.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Shout out to the cleaner who's giving me a dirty right now. I don't know what's going on. She was just looking at me.
Shout out to cleaners.
Yeah. Anyway, I think she looked over as I was giving her a shout out. Yeah, I caught you looking. Why you playing with me like that? Anyway, don't whack me with that mop. I don't. In case you want to clean up my attitude or something. Nah, we good. Yeah. So getting over, what people think about you, man. You know what? For me, I've always been a practical kind of guy. Always been a practical, right? Especially from like my PT days, and obviously being a dating coach as well back then. For me, it was always this: nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about you. That's number one. Right. And if you want a perfect example, and I'm going to bring this up again, right? If I say milk crate, do you guys remember the milk crate kid? But
Yes.
before that, you weren't thinking about the milk crate kid, were you?
No.
Right? Until I tell the story about the milk crate kid who stabbed 2 people, in the city here in Sydney CBD. And then he was taken down by a milk crate. Then people go, oh, snap, yeah, the milk crate kid.
Yeah.
As bad as what he did, was,
Yeah.
nobody was thinking about him until 20 seconds ago.
That's right.
Suppressed.
That's right. So nobody really cares about you the way that you think. So for me, it was always realizing that people don't care about you as much as you think. Yeah, they might remember for a couple of days, a week, a month, maybe, right? If I say buses, what do you guys think of?
Buses.
Just buses, right? But unfortunately, 2 days ago, there was a Hunter Valley bus crash.
Oh.
All of a sudden, we remember.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
RIP to those victims and God be with their families. But as much as all these things happen, people stop thinking about it because everybody else has things going on in their own lives that
Trauma.
they're thinking about. That's right. Right. So the first realization is nobody cares about you as much as you think they care.
Yeah.
The second you accept that, that's very freeing. Number 2, everybody is a main star in their own movie. Right. So if you're the main star in your own movie, that means you're not the main star in somebody else's movie. You ever see like movie credits? They talk about, main star, this person, this person, this person, this person. And then background person number 1, background person number 2, background taxi driver number 3, taxi driver. Nobody knows his name. Right? So we're all background characters in other people's movies. Right? Like on the rolling credits, you're just some background guy. Right? So realizing those 2 things is like the biggest set of like freedom because you then start to realize, okay, cool. No one's really paying attention to me like that.
Yeah.
But then there's also the third confronting mindset as to what makes you so important that you think people actually are thinking about you 24/7. For me, there's never an answer for that one. Because it's like, why do you think you're so important that the 50 other people in your uni class are thinking of you every single second? There's no reason for it, right? So it's those 3 things. And the second you realize that, you're pretty free. Because then you kind of go, I don't really think so. If I screw up, I can screw up. Who cares? Right? Now, everybody hated speeches in high school.
Yeah.
And primary school.
That's right.
But do any of you remember the kid who had the worst speech? Case in point. Nobody's thinking about you that deep. Like, it ain't that deep. So when you make that realization, you're pretty free. You're pretty free.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, I think sometimes people get caught up when they do something wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember my old mentor used to say, if it doesn't affect you in 5 years' time, just let it go.
That's it.
Exactly.
Right? So don't get caught up in the little things if it's not going to affect you in the long term. Right? So for yourself, how do you tackle that fear of what other people think? What were some of the practical tips that you implemented?
I just don't like other people's limitations being imposed on myself. Like, why should I let another person's view of me define who I am? Do you know what I mean? I set my own limits and boundaries naturally, and I'm just feeding off them. So I got to be limitless. Do you know what I mean? If I'm limitless, that's all that matters. I shouldn't let them block out my full energy. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't like to internalize other people's opinions. That's it. You know, that's the worst thing, because you're letting their views define your true potential. You don't want that.
Here's another one that you mentioned. I think another insecurity some people might deal with is overthinking, maybe a bit of anxiety as well.
I know a lot of overthinkers.
A few melancholies.
Yeah, the conscientious people.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. And I guess for yourself, Simba, would you say you're one of those people, or how did you deal with overthinking if you were over-analyzing at one stage of your life?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I did overanalyze to some extent through the lens of who I knew I was. Right. So I was trained in the DISC profile by one of my mentors, right? And the DISC profile is a very loose way, like behavioral psychology.
Yeah.
They break it up into 4 quadrants, right? So you're DISC. So you're D, like you're direct, right? Think of like your CEO is military general, does not give a damn. He's just direct. Whether you like it or not, that's it.
Yeah.
Then you got your I, which is like your influencer kind of person. All about the vibes, they're everywhere, they're a people's person, right? Steve Decker. And then you got your S. They're like you're a bit like self-assured to a degree, but like they're very standoffish until you get to know them. Then they really flourish in that environment. And then you're like, oh yeah, they're a people person only once you get to know them. And then you got your C, your conscientious people. These are your overthinkers. They think about every little detail, OCD, like this has to be like that, like everything. It drives them nuts, right? Some of them, they get to a point where like if they've washed all their dishes, there are 8 glasses in a set of glasses, but one of them is dirty, it's in the sink. That'll drive them nuts. The 8th one has to be clean because it's a complete set, but they overthink. So for me, when I did the self-assessment and when my mentor took me through it, it was, I have a very high D, so I can be very direct. I got no problems with it. I also have a very high I, like the influential side, right? And you have what's called complementary styles. Like a direct person and influential person, they're complementary. So most people tend to have that in common. Or they can be a direct person and a very meticulous, like conscientious, because they're direct and they like things a certain way and they will lay the law down. But you can't have a direct person and like someone who's a little bit like self-conceited. It doesn't work. But you can have a people person who's a little bit self-conceited, but you can't have a people person who is very OCD, like they like things a certain way. Because when you're influential, you just go with the flow. Go with the flow, go with the vibes. So for me, my main style is I'm going to be a high D. I'm going to be direct. That is the first like, I'm going to be direct. Because I don't know if whatever you bring to the table is going to ruin my ability to enjoy the environment and be all about the vibes. Right, so they're my 2 complementary styles. When the vibes are there, who cares, bro? I'm going to be like, yeah, cool, like I'm vibing because there's nothing to be direct about. Like, like I know who the person is, I know how to move, and I'm sweet. So I used to overanalyze. I'm like, all right, cool. All right, so like, I have to be direct, but like, maybe it'll hurt them. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that. Oh, okay, cool. I got to let the vibes out. Okay, am I letting too much vibe out? No, they love vibe out. Like, what is it? Right? And then I flipped the switch. I remember the day I flipped the switch. I was like, hang on a second. Everyone has a different style. If I can sort of see what people's styles are up front, that's the only analysis I need to make. And then I can adjust how much vibe I give them and how much directness based on that person. If you're a military general going absolutely crazy at an incompatible style, like a self-conceited person, they're gonna shut down even more because they need to warm up to the environment. Then they'll accept like the direct, like rah rah rah, like 20 push-ups now, soldier, go go go. Right, but if you do that to somebody who's very OCD, they get it. Because like for them, things have to be a certain way. So I'm like, 20 push-ups, done, bang, bang, bang. They'll bang them out. Someone about the vibes, 20 push-ups. All right, bro. Like, what, you think I'm Superman? They'll still do it, but they're going to have a laugh about it. right? But a direct person might be like, oh, this guy's a joker, isn't he? I'm going to make him do even more, right? So I had to stop over analyzing how my two styles were coming across for the sake of how somebody else would take them and start really analyzing, okay, what sort of style are they? And then I just toned down either my highly influential side or my highly direct side based on who I was dealing with. So I had to look at it through that way.
Dope.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a great framework.
It's so good. I love it.
I guess for me, when I think about overthinking, it often leads to procrastination. And there were like two challenges I'm fighting.
Yep.
For me, the thing with overthinking is you got to understand you're overanalyzing because you're trying to analyze risk. So then why is there a need for you to analyze that risk so severely? Okay.
Yeah.
So often that can stem from an insecurity. So insecurity, overthinking, all of these kind of intertwine. So then it's just a matter of figuring out what's the real source of the overthinking.
Yeah.
And then working backwards and just reflecting on that and then coming up with a solution to that. You know what I mean? Because that'll impact the smoothness of the whole process.
Straight up.
Right? So a great example is, I suppose, when you're going to do any form of public speaking, often you're just like, oh my God, how are they going to react? Are they going to appreciate what I'm going to say? Are they going to laugh at me? Am I going to look cool when I'm speaking? You know what I mean? And so you're pretty much, all of those overthinking comes from an insecurity within yourself that you think you don't have the confidence and you don't know with 100% certainty what you're going to say is actually going to resonate with your audience.
Yeah.
Right? So that insecurity is actually what causes that overall overthinking, right? So the moment you actually take on that challenge, you're like, nah, I'm just going to believe in myself, give it my best shot. And, I know the content. I believe in the content I'm going to say. I'm here to speak because my content is valuable. And you just trust your instinct and go out and do it. It's all good. The overthinking stops, right? Sometimes you just got to dive in, right? The same thing comes when you're like trying to make practical decisions. Like you're a business, okay? You're a business. And you're trying to make a business decision, whether you're expanding into marketing or you need to get finance, whatever. The reason you overthink that decision is because you're trying to weigh in on every factor. You're trying to analyze the cause and effect of every sort of element that's involved in that whole system, right? But sometimes it's better just to go, okay, make a move, right? Because when you overthink and you overanalyze risk, right, you come into this sense of being overly cautious and you put too much weight on every decision that sometimes you can't see the bigger picture.
That's true.
Because you're putting this expectation in your mind of an outcome you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Every time we impose these, it's actually a limiting weight on our thought process, right? You're creating a box and you're working in that box. You need to step out of the box. You know what I mean? Risk is not something to be afraid of. Risk is something we need to accept will always exist because factors are always out of our control. It's better to actually learn to navigate risk than to be risk adverse. I think that really impacts how we overthink. And the thing is, because of all of this overthinking, it impacts our emotional EQ. Because if we don't have good control of our EQ, then the fact that we overthink, we're insecure, it just totally messes with our EQ even more. Right? We lose sight of how we're trying to make decisions even more because now we're emotionally imbalanced. It feeds our insecurity, further feeding our overthinking, and we're almost blind when we're navigating the decisions we're making. There's so many things pulling us, so much things. There's no clarity. Do you know what I mean? The best people who make decisions, they make it with clarity because they're willing to face the consequence of their decision. Do you know what I mean? So the best thing to do is sometimes just give it a go. Trust your instincts, okay? Be willing to lose because you actually learn when you lose.
For sure.
100%.
That's facts. There's something on the back that reminds you of something one of my mentors said. He said, and in this particular sort of like season, he was training me in the art of making decisions. Right. And a lot of people, they'll overthink because they have a decision to make and the decision is driving them nuts.
Yeah.
Right. And then I remember one thing he said very clearly to me. He said, you know what? What people don't have to live with is not the decision. They have to live with the consequence of the decision.
That's it.
And he goes, if you want to make decisions very quickly, assess the consequences that come with any decision. And then just pick the set of consequences you're okay dealing with. And then come up with like a little plan for each of those worries if you want, each of the consequences should they arise. But 95% of the time, most of those things won't even happen.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if you want to make a decision, look at the consequences. Which consequences do you like better? Or which one is the least bad consequence? And then go with that.
Yeah. I also think making decisions with speed is really important.
Oh, facts.
So important.
Facts.
You know, if you sit on the ledge sometimes, you're just going to bide your time. You know, you're actually building this tension in yourself that didn't need to be there. You're almost constricting yourself when you're waiting too long. You know, sometimes you just got to shoot your shot, right? So I always believe it's about making fast-paced decisions, but as you educate yourself, as you level yourself and you build experience, you become more informed in making those decisions. So therefore, when you make a decision fast, you're more effective. That's the difference. Some people, they go either or. They're too informed, so they're risk averse. Like, oh my God, you know, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. They think too much. And some people make decisions too quick that they get themselves into binds, but are not informed enough to get themselves out of it. But you got to be a balance of both. You got to make quick decisions, be intentional, be confident, be willing to accept the consequence of your decision because you're assured in yourself. And that comes from knowing that whatever situation you get yourself into, you will be able to get yourself out of by acquiring resources. Whether resources you possess yourself or resources are from someone else, right? And it comes back to that same thing where it's all about your insecurity, right? Because if you're secure in who you are, you understand the ultimate thing, which is that there is no limit to what you can learn. There's no limit to the information you can gain as long as you're being willing to have an open mindset. Do you know what I mean? The best CEOs, whenever they need advice, they get advice. Do you know what I mean? They will go out and they will not hesitate to pull out their card and get advice from someone else in a similar industry or from someone who has experienced similar waters.
Yeah.
Whether they're a rival or whether they're a colleague, they will get that information because it's so valuable for them to make that decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those 100%. Are the top performing CEOs for sure.
I agree. And I want to piggyback on what you both shared because I want to speak for the females because I remember when I was coaching and I was coaching a lot of females, I remember, and maybe not just females, but I know guys deal with this as well, but perfectionism, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of similar to overthinking, I say. You know, sometimes people just want things to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I remember people put such expectations, but when they don't meet that expectation, they're confronted with disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So how does one overcome that sense of perfectionism? How does one manage their expectations so that they can actually go about life without having to go into that camp?
That's a difficult one, man. That is a difficult one.
Expectation.
Yeah, and we used to hear somebody say it. I'm not going to say the name, but they used to say disappointment is the gap between expectation and reality. Right? When it comes to perfectionism, there is a degree of wanting to control everything. Right? The fact of the matter is you can't control everything.
100%.
You might plan your trip from here to, I don't know, like your cousin's house. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's going to take me 20 minutes if I take this exact road. Suppose there is construction and all of a sudden it's going to take you 40 minutes. You can't control it. So to me, I've never been like a perfectionist to that like compulsive degree.
Yeah.
But I remember there were periods, especially when I was a PT and I was a dating coach, there were periods where I was like, it has to be perfect. Like my program has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like the night out in the city has to be perfect. It has to be a certain way. I remember coming to a realization that things are not always going to work out the way you want.
No.
Now, there is an acceptable sort of, what's the right word for it? There's an acceptable spectrum of what should be perfect. As in like your preparation.
Yeah.
Right? If you have to be a perfectionist, Focus on the things that you can directly control.
Yeah.
That's right.
The things that are up to you.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, let's take it to PT. Like, what's up to me? All right, cool. I gotta calculate. All right, how much exercise does this person need to lose this much weight over a period of 6 weeks, for example, and how much food should be? How many calories in, calories out? How intense is the session? What's the maximum heart rate that they're allowed to go up to, right? Which is normally like 80% of like their maximum highest heart rate. There's a formula used for it, but those are things that are within my control. So like as we're doing the training session, I'm watching the heart rate monitor. I'm like, all right, cool. They're reaching their peak. They get in there. Or on the treadmill, I'm like, all right, they're reaching their peak, and I can ease it off a little bit. So it's more so about what's within your control, and then allow those things to be the things that you are a perfectionist about. Everything outside your control, let those go. Now, I will say this: some people are perfectionists because it's compulsive.
Yep.
And if it's actually causing you problems in your life, like go see a therapist, a doctor, a psychologist, whatever you need to do. There's no shame in therapy. Just do it.
Get help.
Get help.
Get help.
Right? Plenty of resources. And then other people are perfectionists because that's the standard they have for themselves. You know what's a standard you have for yourself? When you don't meet it, you assess why you didn't meet it and you try again.
Yeah.
You know it's a perfectionist sort of bondage / insecurity to deal with. When you don't meet the standard, you kick yourself and you stay down. That's when there's a problem. They're two different things.
Yeah.
If it's a standard, you don't meet it. Like, I didn't meet it. This is how I meet it next time.
That's good.
If it's an actual life problem, psychological sort of challenge and a barrier, you don't meet the standard, you kick yourself for it, all of a sudden you're the worst person on the earth and you spiral downwards. Right? If you're that second one, just go get help, get through it. If you're the first one, I think that's acceptable levels of perfectionism because those are things that you can control. Because you can always assess what could have gone better, what couldn't have gone better. Like I talked about, obviously, still don't know his name. Anyway, the book called Embrace the Suck, where they've got a group of a convoy of 4 Humvees. The last one crashes into the bridge. They didn't plan for that to crash into the bridge on their way to their target, but they're like, damn, well, we can't really control that. You crash into the bridge, right? Looking back on the mission, what could they have done better? Could they have taken another route? Could they have put that particular Humvee in the front? There are so many factors you can't control. You can only look back and be introspective and be like, okay, cool. This is what I could have done. That's what I'll do next time this shows up again. But it's like, oh no, it crashed. Wow, we're the worst team ever. Yada, yada, yada. The SAS doesn't know what they're doing. That's a bad way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because now you're kicking yourself without taking the lesson from it. So that's how I look at that perfectionism situation.
Dope. That was some practical tips there.
I think Simba was on point there. It's always learn to debrief.
All the time.
Just debrief. Debrief with yourself, debrief with your team, evaluate. A lot of businesses, they don't evaluate. It's the same way. People don't evaluate themselves and they don't evaluate their business. They get too comfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, oh, okay, this is how I do things. This is how I operate. This is the standard. They don't actually look to see how they can operate differently by evaluating where their shortfalls are. Do you know what I mean? So the real magic in this is fluidity.
Yeah.
Be like water. You know what I mean?
Bruce Lee.
Water
can flow or it can crash.
Exactly. And it's such a powerful concept because with water, whatever cup it's in, it'll take its shape, right? So nurture the factors around yourself and you can really build something solid. You know what I mean? It can flow to the top, it can flow to the bottom, but whatever it faces, it'll flow through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the same thing with the mindset when you're approaching, whatever problem you're willing to face, is just know that there's factors you can control, factors you can't control, but the way you prepare the factors you can control will give you a better chance of navigating the factors you can't control. Do you know what I mean? Because you accept they're out of your control, but then you're prepared, right? So then you'll be able to use the resources and skills and mindset that you have prepared yourself with to be able to counter the fluctuations of what you cannot control. You know what I mean? A great example is right now with the business market, right? If you look at it, with the increase in interest rates, so many people are feeling it in different ways, right? And it's completely out of our control. But the way you look at that impacts the situation, right?
Yeah.
Most people will be like, oh my God, it's going to affect my bills and everything. But you got to look at it. What can you do? What can you increase yourself? Your cash flow.
Yeah.
So if you go out there, you do an extra job, you're increasing your cash flow. So that increase in cash flow can counteract the increase in interest rates, right? Because so if you're doing little, you have to think about what in your life you can control. Another great example is with COVID, right? I love using this example because most people during COVID, they brought clothes online.
Yeah.
All right, they brought clothes online. Now, the average person will buy the clothes online, whatever it is, Gymshark, whatever. Or they will buy ASOS clothes, right? The smart person will buy ASOS shares.
Or even Amazon shares.
Or Amazon shares.
That's right.
Yeah.
Why? Because they are looking to take control of what they can control. Do you know what I mean? They can control the way they spend their money. Right? So they took advantage of that and invested their money instead of just buying a product.
Yeah.
They're looking at the value, right? If I'm spending Z money for this, right? And can I make more money by buying or purchasing this? It's a totally different type of purchase, but it really impacts your wealth. Do you know what I mean? Because you're reading the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's because he knows this is how much money he has, something he can control. But the way I use this money will impact this and this and this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the difference. You know what I mean? It's something you can control, and that decision makes the biggest impact, right? It's like when you let fear come into your heart or your mind, right? You think, oh my God, I'm so scared. It's how you process that fear that'll impact the next decisions you make,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you internally go, okay, all right, I gotta this. I know I'm shit scared. You're first accepting it, and then you're like, all right, I'm just gonna I'm gonna look at why am I scared? What's the reason I'm scared? Or this is really high. You know, like fear of heights. You're scared. You're fear of heights. If you let that fear grip you, then every decision you make from there, you're rattled with fear. But when you accept the fear, you breathe it in, you breathe it out. It's often, this is a military exercise that you remind me of. All right, when we're in conflict and we're under enemy fire, one of the biggest challenges that our captains asked us to do is that we're given a split second to breathe in and then breathe out and then breathe in and breathe out. And in that second breathe out, we have to move. We have to commit to a decision. That's it. That's all we get.
Yeah.
And we are consistently assessed during training based on how well we make decisions within that breathing technique. So we used to do this thing where you go into a room and you have to enter into the room, right? And you have to trust your team in that moment. And it's the exact same exercise, right? You just have to breathe in, breathe out, and adjust to whatever the environment is. Each simulation was different. The only thing you can do is trust yourself, breathe in, breathe out, and just go for it. And that's the same thing. You have to be able to accept your circumstance, and you have to know that whatever you can control, you have to have that self-belief, 100%.
Just to stretch out, just a layer deeper as well. When you look at, accepting the circumstance,
Yeah.
especially as it comes to like perfectionism, insecurities, or whatever. For every insecurity or every imperfection or whatever the heck it is that you're holding on to, right? You gotta assess: is this gonna be a net positive or a net negative? All right, so get a piece of paper, write down every single insecurity. I love practical stuff. I'm just a practical guy, man. You know what I mean? You write down every single insecurity. Let's say, for example, everything has to be perfect. Like this had to be perfect. Like I had a guy, right, back in the dating coach days. He would not go on a date unless his pants were like fully ironed, creased down the middle, perfect. He wouldn't even put the pants on until like a minute before he left the house because he didn't want to crease them. Pure perfectionist.
Yeah.
Dang.
And like we had to write down a bunch of these. So you assess, okay, cool. Is holding on to this insecurity or this perfectionism or whatever the heck it is it going to change my life drastically for the better or for the worse? Now, in that circumstance, it doesn't add anything to his life. It doesn't really take away anything to his life. It's just his own head. So is it worth carrying that? Comes back to like what Steve said, right? Like, is this going to make me money? If I spend Z money, is this going to make me Z more money?
Yeah.
If it's not, drop it. If it is going to change your life, like for example, like if you're a model and you can't have creased pants, yeah, fine, maybe it's going to prevent you from getting gigs. But if you put your pants on 2 hours before the date and they're a little bit creased at the back, or you think like your date's looking like, hey, let me look at the back of your pants. Are they a little bit creased? Is it going to change your life or not? It's not. So for every insecurity, every imperfection, everything that you're holding on to that plagues you, is it a net positive? Is it a net negative? Write down all the negative things that it'll add to your life. Write down all the positive things that it'll add to your life that will move you forward. Which list is bigger? Or if all of those options are equally as, meh, doesn't really change anything, why are you holding on to it?
Damn, that's some practical tips and powerful.
Yeah.
You know what I love
perspective.
about what Simba said is
Yep.
also this idea of how do you deal with negative emotions? You know what I mean? Because the way Simba explained it
Yep.
is one process of how you analyze negative and positive emotions. But what happens if you're overwhelmed by negative emotions, right? One of the things that I personally do if I'm overwhelmed with negativity is that I like to take a moment to first reflect on where my negative thoughts are stemming from. I like to find the source of things.
Find the root.
To find the root. Okay? Like any virus, you got to find the root and then you got to exterminate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I tend to always look at my negative thoughts, write it down, find a way to process your negative thoughts. Don't keep it in your head because you're feeling so much different thoughts in your head and you actually can't think clearly on where or what's causing it. I think too many people, they try to like think about all the negative things in their head and okay, all right. And then they're like, they just get overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's much better to actually say it out loud, vocalize it or write it down, actually visualize all your negative thoughts. And then you start to see it could be related to one or more things. And then remedy those one or more things, right? So like one thing for me personally that I think was like a negative thought was I was looking at myself and I was like, oh, my physique's not where I want it to be, especially with my fight coming up, right? I was like, oh, maybe I should have cut more or maybe I should have focused more on the boxing. I'm just not happy with my physique coming into the fight. So I actually started putting all my thoughts down. I'm like, what am I looking at myself and I'm not happy with? And then I started reverse engineering all of that to a program that can help me kind of counteract that.
Yeah.
And that actually made me feel more comfortable with my negative thoughts than just going, they just exist and not remedying them. Because now I felt more relaxed knowing that I have a plan in place to help me actually counteract these feelings. You know what I mean?
That's deep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
makes sense.
Yeah. So I think like also another trick that I personally do is I like to focus on positive things and use them as anchors. So like one of my most positive thing is I love hanging out with my mates. So when I'm really down and my energy is low, I will reach out to my mates and I will be like, I'm going to hang out. I'm not feeling 100%, bit of vulnerability, and be like, I need to hang out. And if they're really my mates, they're going to rock up 100%. And also as a mate, you have a responsibility. If your mate's in a low point, rock up. Don't be like, oh, mate, you got this.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Bro, you got this, bro. You got this, bro. Don't be a cheerleader. Stand by your mate. Rock up. All right? So one thing I really appreciate with my boys and appreciate with you guys, when I'm feeling low and I say, guys, I need to hang out, you guys rock up. You know what I mean? The boys rock up. They feel their energy feeds my energy. You know what I mean? And then I feel energized. And then that kind of making good memories with them, it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And that actually helps resonate within myself. And then the negative thoughts that I have, I need to make sure one important principle is that when I leave my mates, I shouldn't go back to being, I'm depressed again. I'm sad. I'm upset.
Yeah.
That's the biggest mistake people go, because then you're not actually exercising the demons. You're just putting them aside. You're ignoring them.
Putting a Band-Aid.
Putting a freaking Band-Aid.
Band-Aid fix.
You need to rip it off. So if you are feeling low because of these negative emotions, you need to assess why they're stemming and can you get help to help you overcome it? So I love hanging out with my mates because they'll make me laugh, they think, and often I actually talk about the fact I'm low, right? And then they will advise me, oh, bro, this is my perspective. This is what you need to do. Maybe you need to read this book, or look, man, this is actually more complicated than what we can suggest to you. Maybe you do need some therapy, right? And it's just getting those little bits of advice because you're open about your emotions will actually really, really help you move forward with it. Because if you don't actually seek help in balancing your EQ, it really becomes a determining factor of your whole entire life. You know
Straight
what I
up.
mean? It's you're basically almost in a rip in the ocean, and you're suffocating,
Yeah.
and you're getting swirled around, and you're getting blurry vision, and you can hear everyone telling you come to the surface, but you're just so falling so deep below, you're helpless, right? But when you get help, when you reach out for help, when you put your hand out, right, and you're trying to get to the surface, no matter what, when you're just trying to break through the tension, someone will grab your hand.
The lifeguard.
The lifeguard. There's always going to be people around, right? But you got to try.
That's right.
And it comes that coming to the surface is that vulnerability. Sometimes we have to accept that we're going to feel sad, and that's normal because we're human beings. Don't feel bad about being sad. Accept you're sad. Do things that make you happy. That's the number one thing. When you're sad, do things that make you happy. Fill your cup with happiness, because that's the source that'll radiate within yourself, radiate and make the passion and the fire like bigger than the darkness that's consuming your heart. That's what I would say.
Hey, the other part of that as well, you also gotta like allow yourself to feel sad or depressed or happy or whatever it is. Have you guys heard of transmutation? Oh, we better break it down. So transmutation,
Masterclass, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, masterclass, right? This is what I used to teach like my clients, right? So transmutation is the art of recycling whatever you feel into something productive. So, and it brings me back to something that Steve said, like you got to be able to process what's going on, and then you can put a plan together, right? And I think, and I hear Einstein being credited to this a lot. I've never looked at it myself, but if it's wrong, somebody correct it, whether online or on Spotify, Apple, for those non-Spotifyers or whatever.
Shoot us a DM.
Shoot us a DM. Let your boy know. But apparently Einstein is credited to saying the same mind that got you in the situation will get you out.
That's right.
Now, what transmutation is, and for those dudes that have anger issues, whether dudes, women, whatever, for those dudes that have anger issues, this is a perfect exercise as an outlet, because I sure as heck, I'm not one that condones domestic violence, lashing out at people, shouting at people, all that kind of stuff.
No.
Zero. As a dude, that should not be the way that you act. It's okay to feel angry, sad, depressed, whatever, but don't act on it. All right? Be logical, not emotional in your actions. So transmutation. Whether, I don't know, you need to bust a nut, for example, or you're angry, you're sad, allow yourself to feel it. Like, go through it. Allow yourself to feel it. But there's a book by David Hawkins. It's called Power versus Force. And he also have, I think it's called The Power of Letting Go, or Letting Go. In those two books, he talks about different emotions. Power versus Force is really just says, feeling despair it's a force. But how do you turn that into a power? And then letting go is more so about just letting the emotion run and whatnot. But transmutation goes, let's say, I don't know, like you feel like, I don't know, like let's say like your lady is just, I don't know, she's, whatever the heck is happening, she's just not around, and like you really need to like let it out, right? Instead of finding other ways to do it that are not as productive, maybe you go hit the gym. Instead of pre-workout, like use that energy for like, this is how I'm feeling, but let me go tire myself out use this as the energy. Same like if with the anger, for example. A lot of people deal with anger, right? Before you lash out at like your next door neighbor, your dog, your cat, your child, or your brother, your sister, whatever, get a boxing bag, put on some boxing gloves, go to the gym. Let it out on the boxing bag. Let it be an outlet.
Yeah.
Because when you let it be an outlet, number one, you're not harming anybody. Number two, you get to express the emotion.
Yeah.
Right. And number three, you come to terms and you actually accept that emotion a lot more. Right. Instead of like, trying to mask it straight away.
Yeah.
I used to get some of my clients, especially the ladies. Oh my days. They'd have a breakup. I'm not gonna come training today. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, what happened? Because for me, it wasn't just physical training, personal training. Like, let's look at your whole life, right? So very often when you're a PT, you're gonna hear everybody's life story, their problems, like their boyfriend, girlfriend, cousin, cat, grandma, everything. Oh, I'm not gonna come train today. Oh, okay, cool. So I know you and your man have been having some problems. Like, did something happen? Yeah, we broke up. I'm just not feeling it. I'm like, look, you're still coming to training, but we're gonna do something different today. I'll run you through when you get here. I'm like, all right, cool, great. So Dad broke up. And what a lot of people don't realize is with emotional energy, it has to be turned into something else for it to go away.
It has to be channeled.
Has to be channeled. So I would get them to just hop on the treadmill.
Right.
I'll be like, for example, I don't know, like Eliza, jump on the treadmill. You're just gonna just run your heart out. Just run your heart out. Oh, is that it? Like no weights, no squats, nothing. Just run your heart out. Change the pace as you go. Just run your heart out until like you've had enough and like you feel like, you know what, you can keep moving. They'll get on there. Sometimes half an hour, sometimes 40 minutes, sometimes an hour. Just bolting, just going at it. Because that same outburst of energy, it's going out rather than just being like, you know, boiling into tears or whatever. It's still emotional energy leaving the body because that's your fuel. I'll be like, no, I'm not giving you pre-workout. I'm not giving you, like, you know, no teaspoon of peanut butter or coconut oil. Use that, just run. And they will just run.
I love it.
And that will just let it out. For dudes, it was like, pick up some heavy ass weight. And I was like the biggest PT. I had another PT of mine, Justin. This dude, right, South Korean dude, like absolute unit, absolutely peeled, but he was huge. I'd be like, dude, pick up the heaviest weight. Go for a personal record, right? Yeah, I'd be like, dude's trying to hit like a 180 on the bench press. They've never touched anything above like 140, for example, right? You know what I mean? Put on like 2 extra 20s on the side. I'd be like, Justin, spot him. Right, and they'll just, you just see these people that just like push their heart out, and they let all the energy out. Yeah, the next day they're still a bit sad, but they don't need to lash out over it. They're like, you know what, I've accepted this has happened, but they've let it channel out. So find a productive means to let that energy out. That's how you then accept it, and then you start to work with it. Then you move through it.
Yeah,
and then you move through it.
It's interesting you mentioned. I did a similar thing with a client where I actually got dumbbells, which were like about 12 kg.
Yeah.
All right. And I got them to do curls, right? And 12 kg for them wasn't too bad. Wasn't like heavy. But what the purpose was is when he went up to a certain rep range, I just kept going, another one, another one.
One more.
You ain't stopping till I tell you to stop. I kept going.
Yeah.
As the reps increased, he was in pain.
Yeah.
And I kept pushing him. I kept going, come on. I kept pushing him. And what you found is, as he was feeling the challenge, as he was feeling the pain, he had to dig deeper.
Yeah.
All right? And the mental fortitude it took him to actually push himself to the higher rep range actually made him discover some strength within himself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And because I kept pushing it, and all his mind could solely focus on was overcoming that obstacle.
Yeah.
He began to feel more comfortable with that mindset of pushing himself, right? So then every time when we finished a set, right, he felt more like gracious of himself. He felt proud of himself, right?
Yeah.
And then when I did another exercise and did the same thing, I kept pushing him. I didn't need to keep telling him, keep going. He had a voice within himself going, I want to keep going.
Yeah.
It started to become a habit, a good habit, right? Because he started to find a way of channeling his emotions to get through that, right? And that's actually an important thing from what you're doing with your client, right? You're actually telling them that the voice within yourself has to be louder than what you're feeling. You channel it. You are in control of what you're feeling.
Yeah.
It's how you channel it that counts, right? So when we are in a flight or fight mode, we tend to have to make a decision to channel our emotions, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we cause when we are under exerting that level of stress on ourselves through pain, physical pain. We often just have to fight or flight. So we dig deep. And that's exactly what I think that technique is so effective, because we just have to go, I've got to push through this pain. And the fact that you're reinforcing that by telling him, keep going, keep pushing, you're putting positive affirmations in the person's mind. That's why one of the love languages is actually like
words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Because self-talk, positive self-talk is so important.
Yeah.
And that like affirmations makes people feel good, whether coming from another person or coming from within yourself. That's why I always feel if you don't have something nice to say to someone, don't say it. Because words are like blades. You put it out there, it can really hurt someone. Because if something positive can make someone feel so good, something negative will do the same.
Amen.
That's facts. It's like you punch someone in the face, you can't take the punch back.
Exactly. 100%.
It's already landed, bro. Yeah.
Straight up. Straight
Yeah,
up.
man. You can't refund it. You can't refund it.
That's it.
I don't know,
And that
man.
shit's going to leave a mark.
It'll leave a mark, man. Yo, I feel like we've been doing a whole therapy session for the people out here, man. Damn, dropping bombs. What say you, the people's champ?
I was
The
just gonna
people's champ is
say,
our director, man.
for the listeners out there, if you guys enjoy content like this, let us know. Right?
Yeah.
I'll
Let
make
us
a
know what you're
poll
struggling with too.
and let us know if this
Let's talk about
type of content resonates with you guys and if you find this valuable. We can definitely cover more insecurities in other episodes.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, as we wind down this episode, just talk a little bit about just the interaction that we want to have with the Limitless community.
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right, the people's champ, what you got for us?
Yeah, let us know.
So one of the things that we want to focus on in the Limitless show is to build on that community.
Yeah.
So if the listeners out there want to be part of that community and you guys actually want to see us do a podcast, let us know. And I know some of Simba and also Steve's friends are keen to jump on and actually observe the podcast.
Yeah.
So for the audience out there, if you guys want to be a part of a community, you're more than welcome because we're a collaborative spirit. That's sort of what we go off on.
Yeah.
And in terms of challenges, did you have one that you want to maybe put out, Simba?
Look, speaking of, I guess, like dealing with insecurities and mindsets, I'm gonna do the insecurity challenge.
Okay.
For every insecurity that you have, get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, a piece of paper for each insecurity. Let's say, for example, I don't know, talking to girls or being a perfectionist or whatever the heck it is. Every insecurity you have, draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write negative. On the right side, write positive. On each respective side, so on the negative side, write down what are the negative things that this insecurity is doing to my life and it can do to my life in the future. Because this is where self-sabotage starts. On the positive side, write down what are the positive things that this insecurity is doing for my life right now and in the future.
Yeah.
More than likely, it's going to have a lot more negatives. And if it's got a lot more negatives, decide to literally like sit on that and decide to let it go. Now, obviously, you can't just drop it like straight away. The second thing that you want to do is on what day will I allow myself to move on from this? And then maybe it's 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, or whatever. And then come that day, between now and that day, you got all the time to hang on to it. But come that day, what is the first action that you're going to do to get on the other side of that insecurity? Whether it's, for example, you're going to write an affirmation, I will let go of things I can't control. From that day, the day that you reach, this is D-Day, right? Like military stuff, D-Day. This is D-Day. From that day on, anytime that insecurity comes up, today I'll let go of everything that I can't control. Or, for example, how people think of me does not change my life, right? That would be for like an insecurity, like, you know, being worried about what people think. That would be my challenge. It's a very introspective one. Write it down.
Mantras, if I could say.
Mantras, because it feeds off what Steve says, right? Like you gotta let that insecurity out. And if maybe D-Day becomes, I don't know, you now have to go see a therapist, right? Let that be your next action step. Maybe your action step is, you know what, I actually need to see a therapist about this.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, and then that D-Day action is, okay, come this day, I have my first session with the therapist.
Yeah, take steps.
Yep.
That's
Baby
the
steps.
thing. Take steps. And I think that leads to what my sort of challenge would be, which would be actually share your stories. We want to listen. We want to be there with you in the fight. You know, we are people who have suffered. We have people who have faced challenges in our lives. And we have people who are trying to get to our dreams. And we know the adversity we faced is just a platform to other adversities that we will face in the future. But one thing we know as the three emperors, as three brothers in arms, is that whatever we face, we will give it our best shot and we'll stand by each other. And that's the exact type of values that we want to instill within our community. So if you have challenges that you face and insecurities you face and you want to fight with us and you want us to fight alongside you, don't be afraid to share. I know that we are willing to listen and we're willing to come up with ideas of how you can face that challenge. Even if you're not ready to openly come forward and speak on it on the pod, if you want us to get guests or research and find out people and strategies that can assist you to fight from your own crib, let us know. I think it's important to know that you're not alone in today's society. There are like-minded people who do hear your screams for help.
Yeah. There's a sneaky plug I'm going to throw in there. There's a sneaky plug. Speaking of not doing it alone, shout out to the guys in part of our Top D's mentorship group, the Limitless. You know what I mean, right? You don't have to do it alone. There's a lot of dudes out there making daily actions, you know what I mean, in a positive direction.
Yeah.
So if you want to be part of Top D's mentorship under the Limitless, by all means, inbox a podcast, right? Inbox a podcast. I think, look, Christo, you got all the links. The People's Champ, where can they find us?
You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. And if you also want to contact us directly, we do have a Gmail account. So I'll share that in the bio. And I just want to say for all the listeners out there, stay limitless.
Stay limitless, babes.
We'll see you at the next one.
See ya.
Damn, that was good.